Hey, let me ask you a question. What are you carrying today that doesn't belong to you? Now, I know that we all have genuine responsibilities and things that we have been entrusted, but many of us are exhausted because of the extra baggage that's killing our forward momentum. It's not the responsibilities that belong to us, but the things that we should never be carrying that weigh us down. In today's episode, we're going to be taking a hard look at the mental and emotional inventory that we so often carry. And we're going to identify the assumptions, the proxy offenses, the future worries, and all those things that weigh us down, because it's time for us to travel light and move fast. Hey everybody, and welcome to Motivating Moments. I am your host, Pastor Steve Evans, and I'm really glad you're here today. Whether you're starting your week, just taking a break, or needing a moment to reset, this space is for you. Every episode here on Motivating Moments is designed to help you think clearly, lead intentionally, and stay aligned with what matters most. No hype, no pressure, just practical perspective and encouragement for real life and leadership. So take a breath, lean in, and get ready for today's motivating moment. So I've titled today's episode, Careful What You Carry. And the core idea is very simple. You can't reach your destination if your hands are so full of things that aren't yours to hold. Let's jump into our weight inventory and just take a few minutes here to identify a few common types of emotional and mental baggage that we so often pick up that really aren't ours to carry if you really think about it, but we do carry a lot of them. And I'm going to do a lot of self-revelation here for you today, for lack of a better term. I'm just going to be transparent and be honest with you and say these are some things that I concern myself with oftentimes, and I feel like there are others who probably do. I'm going to tag in another one or two that I know people struggle with. This is by no means aimed to be a conclusive list. I'm sure that there are other weights that you might add to this. If you have weights, if you're watching this on YouTube and you want to comment, by all means, drop that in there and let's have a conversation about the weights that maybe you carry. Join me on social media. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram as well. You've heard those links many times before. But I would love to have a conversation with you. You can always jump on the chat at motivatingmoments.online. I would love to connect with you that way also. But I'm going to share a few of these weights here with you that I often find myself carrying if I'm not careful, to be sure that I'm not. My bag can become full of things that are unnecessary and unessential, not only unnecessary and unessential, but also not helpful at all. So one of the things that I often find myself struggling with is the weight of negative assumptions. This weight of negative assumptions is the mental burden of mind reading. And when I say mind reading, it's not that we can actually read minds, but we suppose or we assume that on what a colleague or a friend or a family member might be thinking of us, or how we're being received or perceived in a given moment. And we will engage in mental theatrics where we build an entire narrative, a whole scene of life in our heads around someone else's tone or the way they responded to us in an email or their facial expression. And the odd thing is we will carry that weight as if it were a fact. I mean, we will take somebody's less than desirable tone with us. We don't even stop to think about what kind of day they've had, what kind of trouble, what kind of stressors are pressing on them in the moment. We just know how they responded to us, and we will take that at face value and apply it as fact to our lives. And that's not a very healthy thing. And the truth of the matter is, I want to give you a key to work around that, because I don't like feeling that way personally. And I would assume, I know that in situations where that has been assumed about me, I don't want to be perceived in that light either. So it's always good to have an honest conversation. So I want to give you the solution here is something that I call the clarity door. And the clarity door is simply this: instead of carrying the guesswork, go directly to the source. Not as a confrontation, not to say, hey, I'm really blaming you right now and getting on your case because this is the way things are. No, it's not a confrontation, it's a conversation where you just simply invite clarity and just simply start with something like, hey, I just wanted to check in. The way I received or the way I understood your response, or I got a sense from our conversation that X was going on. Can you clarify what you meant? And that moment of clarity is so much lighter than a week or weeks or months or maybe even years of assumptions that we carry, oftentimes erroneously. I'm not going to say much more about what assumptions do to us, but you probably all have heard the negative connotation of assumptions that go unchecked. The second thing, now this one is, I want to be clear, this is not something that I struggle with, but as a church leader particularly, this is something that I have seen people struggle with through the years. And I know it's a very real thing, and you pick up on it in the moods and tudes of people. That one day they are just fine and dandy with you. The next day, the attitude sours a bit, and it kind of tends to deteriorate from there. And you search yourself and you try to figure out what in the world is going on. If you can ever get any clarity in that situation, sometimes it is not their assumption about you. It is that they have actually taken an ownership of an offense that someone else has perceived there. So I want to caution you to guard against carrying the weight of proxy offense. And what that is that's when you take ownership of an offense against someone else when the proposed offending party really has done nothing to you personally. A friend is hurt by a third party, and suddenly we want to be fully invested in the drama. We want to carry the anger. We want to help carry the resentment for them. And the truth in this is simply this: it might make your friend feel good for you to do that, but you're becoming a pack mule for a third-party story. And while empathy is good, carrying someone else's burden of bitterness is destructive to your own life. And I want you to remember this. If it isn't your fire, don't carry the soot. I'm going to say that again. If it isn't your fire, don't carry the soot. Your job is absolutely to support your friend, support the person that whether you believe they're in the right or the wrong, just support them, love on them, do what you need to do. But you can support the person and not adopt their fight. And I've seen a lot of people do that, and they carry that weight of proxy offense. That's not helpful to you in the forward trajectory of your life. So back to one that I do struggle with quite a bit, and that is the weight of overwhelm. The problem of overwhelm happens when we try to carry the whole mountain at once. We look at the 20-page paper, the department crisis, and all the home projects as just one giant mass. And the truth is that overwhelm is often the weight of tomorrow being carried today. And sometimes, I don't know, I've had varied kind of reactions to this when I'm talking to other individuals in the way that they deal with it. But I know there's a couple of different ways. There's some really hardcore nose to the grindstone hustlers that just, and I count myself as one of those, but even still, sometimes the weight of the overwhelm will almost pin you to the bed in the morning. I mean, it's hard to get up some days and get going, not because you don't have anything to do, but because there is so much on the docket and so many heavy responsibilities, it feels like that overwhelm will get you. But I just want to encourage you that you're only one person and you can only do so much. And the solution to that sense of overwhelm is to break the mountain down into stones, because you aren't called to carry the mountain. You're called to take the next step. And just focus on the immediate, the next input, the next stone that needs to be moved, and let the rest of it sit until it's time to pick it up. And try to kind of distance yourself from that mental, emotional weight of carrying the entire project when the scope of it is so large that you need to focus on today and what you can get done today. Don't underestimate the power and the value of what you get done today, just because today is such a small percentage of the overall project. So another one that I deal with on a fairly regular basis is carrying the weight of future outcomes. And this is many times the heaviest weight. I want to make a distinction here before I go into this and say, this is not to say that we should not care about the outcomes. Caring about the outcomes is what drives the inputs. Caring about the outcomes is what drives the disciplines in our lives. Caring about the outcomes is where we find motivation. So I'm definitely not saying set the concern for the outcomes aside. I'm just saying be wise and be prudent, plan and prepare. That's responsibility. But realize that we can only control the inputs, our character, our efforts, the investments of today, and then we've got to surrender the results. I mean, we're challenged with that in the Word of the Lord, where it says, especially in my line of work in the gospel ministry, and hopefully you, even if you're a believer, you're engaged in gospel ministry, and whatever marketplace you're in or wherever you are, the shape and position of your pulpit may look a little different than mine, but hopefully you're there in the world being a living epistle, read and known of all men. But my point in that is saying that the word says that some sowed, that's an input, because you input, the intended output of that is that you're going to see a harvest. Some watered, the intended outcome of that is that you're going to see a harvest. But if you get discouraged in the lack of harvest and you stop sowing and you stop watering and you stop tilling the ground, you're never going to see the harvest. But the scripture makes it clear, though, that the harvest or the outcome is God's business. Some sowed, some watered, God gives the increase. So you and I kind of need to have that in our work lives, in our professional lives, home lives, whatever it is, whatever goal that you're seeking after. You and I can only control the inputs. We can't control the future, and we can't control the outcomes because there are so many contingencies that weigh into the outcome. But worry is simply trying to carry the outcome. The result, before it ever happens, we're worried about it. And the release here is to trust God with the result while you stay faithful with the inputs. Do your part, put in your best effort, and then you've got to surrender the results to the Lord. But you weren't designed to carry tomorrow's burdens today, and that's very simply what that is. That's a good summary, honestly, of several of these is carrying tomorrow's burdens today. So how do we keep this weight off, honestly? First of all, I want to give you these few practical steps here. First of all, we've got to guard our mind. Forward momentum requires the discipline of renewing your mind every day. As the Apostle Paul wrote in Romans 12, verse 2, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind. You have to actively choose what the thoughts that you allow to take up residence in your mind. And I know the argument is, and you've probably heard me say this before, but it's okay, I'll remind you. The argument may be, well, I can't help what thoughts I think. No, you can't help what thoughts pass through your head. And as somebody said, you can't You can't control how the birds fly over your head any more than you can control what thoughts pass through your mind, but you can keep the birds from making a nest in your hair. And that's true of your thoughts as well. You can't help the ones that enter your mind, but you can choose which ones have permission to stay and take up a residence there. So guard your mind. Second, you need to engage in an active discarding. And that is that if the burden that is trying to settle in on your life isn't yours to carry, you can't let it stay on your shoulders another mile. Go through your inventory. If it's an assumption, open the clarity door and get it out. If it's a proxy offense, kindly hand it back and say, I love you, but I can't join you in this. If it's a future worry, either about the overwhelm that lies ahead or the outcome of things that have yet to be seen, you have permission to put the bag down and not carry that any further. So I hope that you are enriched by this today and challenged maybe even to just really take an inventory, because sometimes I think we are exhausted and we're worn out and we lack motivation and energy simply because we let these types of things play unchecked in our minds and in our emotions, and they will wear on you more than physical labor will actually. So anyway, think about those things. Again, if you know some more, it wasn't intended to be an all-inclusive list, but just kind of a guiding principle or some illustrations to guide a thought for us there for the week. But I want to thank you for spending these moments with me today. My hope is that something that you heard encouraged you, challenged your thinking, or helped you take a step forward towards lighter living. And if this episode added value to your day, I'd love for you to like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. And that's how this message reaches more leaders who need encouragement and clarity. And if you're a leader, if you're a pastor of an organization looking to strengthen your team, I would love to come alongside you. I work with leaders and teams to help reinforce vision, bring alignment, and add a steady, encouraging voice that supports the leader's voice, not replaces it. And if you would like to learn more about those opportunities, you can connect or explore all those coaching opportunities at motivatingmoments.online. Again, that's motivatingmoments.online. And until next time, I want to encourage you, stay intentional, stay faithful, and keep moving forward. And I'll see you next time for another motivating moment.